What's up YouTube, Dal here from Zephyr War Games, and today I am bringing you an update to S-Force. Yes, it has been a long time since I've updated this deck. They did get 2 brand new cards thanks to Breakers of Shadow, and the deck is still incredibly fun. I really enjoy this deck. It is very fragile, and what I mean by that is there are very easy routes and ways to disrupt it. But if people can't get to those routes, this deck can go off very well. And the best thing about it is, especially with Cypherlock decks running around, this deck doesn't really care about the extra deck, which is also a very nice bonus. With all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you do not miss out on any more upcoming content. If you would like to see a test hand or duel video with this deck, then please smash that like button, get it to at least 50 likes in the first 24 hours, and I will bring that for you. With all of that out of the way, let's dive headfirst into the profile for S-Force. So, you start off with the heart and soul of the deck, and that is triple S-Force Wrapper. So this one has the effect that, as a quick effect, you can banish a card or an S-Force card from your hand as cost, sad face, to special summon an S-Force from the deck. Then if you do, you return this card to the hand. So there's a lot of issues with that. Number 1, it banishes for cost. Number 2, it remains on the field. If it bounced itself back to the hand as cost, yes, it would leave your board empty, but it would then allow you to dodge stuff like Imperms and Veilers. Sadly, this is pretty much the complete fodder for every hand trap imaginable, which is the real big issue, because it can get hit by Imperm, Veilers, Ashes, Ogres, you name it. It really does suck that way. It also has a column effect, as the same as the rest of the S-Forces, that each of your opponent's monsters in the same column as your S-Force monster can only target that monster for attacks, and then kind of go from there. So you can only use each effect once per turn. It is a warrior. There are other routes you can do to make this more consistent. People can play the Isolde engine, and you play a couple of equips. You can also play Adia, the Heavenly Monarch, but it does lock you out of your extra deck the turn you do it, which isn't the end of the world, but basically you're pretty much using Idea to get to it, and I don't feel that it's needed. We're then playing triple S-Force Edge Razor. So when this card is normal or special, you get to special an S-Force from the hand, which is really good, because it helps get your higher levels out of the hand, which we currently play 3 different versions, but they're all very good. It then has a column effect the same as Wrapper, that monsters in an S-Force column cannot be used for Link 3 or higher. So it kind of limits your opponent to Link 2s, which is all well and good, except the Link 2s are absolutely bonkers right now. You look at Vertes, Dagdas, Cherubinis, you name it, you're still giving them access to that. So I wish this would have locked them from Link summoning, or locked them from being able to go into Link 2s, or couldn't be used as Link material at all, which would have been amazing. But I suppose Konami were like, well, we've got to make this card balanced. And then the last 3 we play is Gravitino. I love this card. This card is so good. So when it is normal or special, you get to add an S-Force card from your deck to the hand. And the reason it's so good is you get this Mac Daddy card, which I absolutely love, which is S-Force Chase. And we'll talk about that later on. Monsters in the same column as an S-Force monster, when they leave the field, they are banished instead. So if you compulse them, if you do exactly what S-Force Chase does, which is basically a multiple compulse, they get banished, which is really important, especially if your opponent links off as well. So by putting this or having S-Forces in the link zones, even if you occupy one of them, it basically means that anytime your opponent links off a monster or uses that monster in that zone to go, it gets banished, which is really good. We've then got 2 Platina. Now, it's only in the grind game do you ever miss having a 3rd of her. And basically the way she works is if she's normal or specialed, you get to special summon a banished S-Force monster in defense. So the idea behind this, sorry, not in defense, I believe it just special summons it. But the idea behind this is you use Wrapper, banish Gravitino, special summon Platina from the deck. Platina then summons out the Gravitino, gives you 2 monsters on the board, but then also gives you the trap off of that. So you're basically getting a 2 bounce, possibly 2 banish. Monsters in the same column as an S-Force monster lose 600 attack, which is important because the strongest attack monster that you have in your main deck is 24, which is the brand new Lapswell. Now, I really like the artwork on this card. I just feel that its effects could have been a little bit better. So if it is specifically special summoned, so it's easy to do because it can come off of Platina, but it can also come off of a search from the back of Gravitino if you've got it, by searching out your S4 Showdown, which lets you special summon from the hand in defense. You get to target an S-Force monster in your graveyard, accept itself, and special summon it. You can banish one S-Force card from your hand to destroy all of your opponent's monsters in the same column as S-Force monsters. Only use each effect once per turn. So it doesn't have the searchability or kind of power plays that these do. And because we're playing a control version that we want to banish, spoiler, D-Shifter, its graveyard effect does come up to let you recycle Platina, because special summon this, summon down Platina, bring back Platina. Platina's effect gives you Gravitino. So you've got a free route there. The other way you can do it is, of course, Lapcell can come off of Platina. And then he can then bring back a Gravitino from the grave. So you can kind of see the synergy and routes of play through it that way. But one is more than enough. You search it when you want it. And because it is specific on a special summon, it is a little bit more control. And the destruction effect, ideally, would have been nice to be a quick effect, but you have to go with it as it is. We've then got the other brand new one, which is the retroactive. Now, I was looking at putting this at more than one. And ultimately, until we get like a Link to S-Force, you kind of want to keep it as it is. So this one gives you the ability to use it as link material if you're going to link summon for a S-Force monster by using this monster in the hand as material as well. During the main phase, as a quick effect, you return this card to your hand, and if you do, special summon one level 2 or higher S-Force monster from your hand. If an S-Force monster you control would banish a card or cards from the hand to activate its effect, you can banish this card in the graveyard instead. Now, what makes this really good is it has the effect of Wrapper, and then it has the graveyard effect of the S-Force Chase. So that's really, really important, because you can imagine that banishing this cost with Wrapper really sucks. This one's great as well, because banishing from this to then destroy, these are the only two that are going to use that effect. So this can put in a lot of work. The issue is that you're more times than not actually happier leaving your S-Forces on the board, occupying more columns, than you are trying to link summon into their link monster. So what they really need is they need a Link 2 that can kind of help special an S-Force from the hand, deck, grave, you name it. Maybe even the banish zone. And then that will help them link climb into Link 3, but it also means that the retroactive gets more effects. The good thing about this is if you wanted to, you could search it off of Isolde if you did go down that route. And because it's not an activated effect to use it as link material, it could help you out massively to get where you need to go. Because the way it would work is Isolde would search this out, and then Isolde would special summon a Wrapper, and then you could just then link all three of those going into your main boss monster, which is your S-Force Justify. For the monsters that are not S-Forces, we are playing Triple D-Shifter. It's just that hand trap that if you see it, more times than not, you will win the duel off the back of it. And it's in a deck that can play under it as well. So the only time you ever want to yeet this out is if you're up against Flunders, or you're having a really unlucky day, because once you've used it once, the other two copies are completely dead. So if you're not seeing this, if you feel really unlucky, you can yeet it out straight away. The other hand trap we've got is Triple Gamma and the One Driver. I'm not too sure on this. There's a lot of cards that we can use to try and bait it out, but the majority of cards that we are going to activate, our opponent is probably going to be like, you know what, I don't care about that. I'm not going to ash it. So it does make it a little bit more difficult to kind of successfully resolve it, but it kind of comes down to, again, same with D-Shifter, what your day is like. If you're seeing it at the right time, great. You've also got to keep in mind as well that Gravitino is a psychic, which is really, really important, because if we were to have, and it's a little bit difficult to get this, but if you were to have Lambda on the board already, by using your Wrapper effect to banish the Gravitino, it would trigger the Lambda effect and let you kind of go off from there, which is kind of nice, but is very, very specific. The last monsters we have, I'm sorry guys, but Dasher, Celestial, and Double Fusion Destiny, because this deck doesn't really lock you into anything apart from a couple of cards that stop you going into the extra deck the next turn. Being able to play a one card power just gives you that backup. Like in the past, you go Wrapper, they go Ash, you go Cry. Now you can go Wrapper, Ash. Okay, fine. I guess I'm falling back on this a little bit. So it's just what you need. I'm afraid that to compete, if you've got the space for an engine like that, if this would work with the Brave engine, I probably would play that as well, just to give you that competitive ramp. If you don't have that engine, don't worry. You would then shift to a more heavily control based. And what I mean by that is you would then be looking at putting strikes into the deck, torrentials into the deck, more so the strikes than the torrentials, but just giving you a bit more control. The exact same can be said for the next card, which is Prosperity. I just wanted to control the extra deck a little bit more, but if you don't have it, especially with the reprint coming in the Albad Strike structure deck, these can easily be extras, because in theory, you really don't care about your extra deck. There are just times where it's like, right, well, I can't beat over a 2800 monster. Like if your opponent puts a monster on the board that is not 2800 and is higher than 2800, and you can't get 2 Platinas on the board, you're going to struggle to deal with it if you've already burnt through your S-Force chases. I then went with 2 Bridgehead and 1 Terraforming. Now, this is a last-minute change that I made. Bridgehead is, when it's activated, you get to search out an S-Force monster, which is really important. And then it also has the effect that when a opponent's monster attacks an S-Force monster in the same column, like if it didn't have that in the same column and was just like diagram, you can protect it once per turn. That would be really, really cool. But sadly, it's not. It has to attack in the same column. Sometimes it happens if your opponent forgets about this. But the way I saw this is, if I desperately wanted it, I would search it off of Gravitino. I hate multiples in the hand because it just doesn't take you anywhere. So I was like, I'd rather see a Terraforming plus an S-Force, because then I can try and bait out with the Terraforming and then use the Bridgehead and kind of work it from there. Then we've got 2 Showdown. This is actually really, really good, especially when you're playing a lot of the higher monsters. It's kind of one of the ones that if you want to push for game, and what I mean by that is you want to kind of push for board presence, then this can be really helpful to, especially if someone's 1 from the hand in defense, or it can target 1 in the graveyard and add it back to the hand. But it's a quick effect, so you can use during your turn or your opponent's turn, and it just gives you that access of getting a Gravitino from the hand, getting a Platina from the hand, getting the Lapis from the hand as well, and just gives you your higher level monsters to kind of deal with your opponent and deal them damage. Rotor for Rapper, and then of course Called by the Grave, because it's one of these ones where if you get ashed at the right time, it will suck, and it will pretty much not pull your board apart, but really stop you progressing your plays. So continuing on into the traps, this is where this deck can shine. So you play triple, there can only be 1. So your monsters, apart from Rapper with DPE, you've got Psychics and Gammas, but obviously if you're going to do Gamma, you're going to get Driver as well, so you can't do it. But you've also got a Warrior in a Retroactive, which you should be using from the hand rather than the field. You've got a Fiend in the Laswell. You've got a Spellcaster in Platina. You've got a Psychic in Gravitino. You've got a Cyverse in Razor. And then you've got a Warrior in Rapper. So being able to play Tikaboo, it's one of the ones quite like D-Shifter. If you can play it, do it. Then we've got Triple S-Force Chase. Love this card. So you target face-up cards, sad bit, up to your opponent controls up to the number of S-Force monsters you control with different names. Return them to the hand. If an S-Force monster would use you control would use its effect by banishing a card from the hand, you can banish this card instead. So this is really good for the quick effect of Rapper, but the idea is that you combo this off with Gravitino, and that's when you can then, when you bounce them, they get banished instead, which can be very, very important. And the last 2 cards I went with Double Punishment. The only clash is with Fusion Destiny. Other than that, like being able to pop 2 is really, really important and really powerful, especially when you're trying to control the board as well. Like, we've already seen that Rapper, in theory, is a 2-card combo that can lead you into the S-Force Chase. So you add another card like Tikaboo or Punishment to it, and it's going to be very difficult for your opponent to break unless they've opened up like Twins or Dusters. So that's it for the main deck. I will show you the side deck. Yeah, let's show you the side deck first. Yeah, show you the side deck first. So this is all gets adapted depending on your local. So I went with triple Token Collector because there was 3 Sword Souls there today, plus the Brave package, double Droll, double Lancer, double Nib, double Cosmic, triple Evenly, and the 1 Macro Cosmo. Now, the reason I've got this in here is because it doesn't work well with DPE. Like, Shift is good because you just hold. You're going to drop it during your opponent's turn. You're going to play under it during 1 turn of yours, or you're going to drop it during your turn, play under it, and then go for DP the next turn. Whereas Macro is continuous. It's a card that I kept putting in because it was like one of the ones where it's like side in. My opponent can't deal with without having their graveyard, and it just basically gave me a 4th copy of D-Shifter. And then you could also look at putting in D-Fissure as well. So side deck is pretty much standard on that one. Go in second, board breaker, back row hate, combo heavy decks that don't play around this. cards I want to banish and protect me from evenly, decks that were searching a lot, and then like I said, this was the highly represented hand trap for the pure fact that I was expecting a lot of Sword Soul and Braves. So then for the extra deck, we've got 2 Justify. Now, you only really need to play 2. Arguably, you could play 1. It's rare that you're going to make it because it does... Like, this has got all of the bad clauses to make it. Like, it has no zones that point to you. It requires 3 effect monsters, including an S4. So you can't even make it with a Link 2 and just 1 monster. It requires 3 specific monsters, which is really annoying. It does have a very nice effect. So it does give you the ability... You can't... so you cannot special summon or set monster to a zone this points to, which sucks. It basically means that if this was pushed down below a Link zone, you couldn't put a monster in the extra monster zone. You'd have to go to the other side. Like, if it said you could not special summon monsters to the zone this card points to, or neither player can special summon to zones this card points to, that was really good, because then it would restrict your opponent by 3 zones, forcing them to go into the other 2 zones where you would set up like Gravitino and Platino or something like that. It does have a quick effect to target a face-up effect monster your opponent controls, negates effects until the end of this turn. Then you can move that opponent's monster to their main monster zone this card points to. That's important because at the start of the damage step, once per turn, if this card attacks, you get to banish all monsters this card points to. So the idea is that you're supposed to be setting your opponent up to point them to it. But, like, I mean, it says you cannot summon or set. If it had said you cannot special summon monsters to zones this points to, like your opponent couldn't, it would mean that they could still normal to it, and they could still do everything they wanted to. I just think it could have been better. It could have been a lot better. So, carrying on with the Link monsters, we'll go with the Link 2s. You've got the IP Masquerena, which will lead you ideally into Nightmare Unicorn, which I'll show you later on. Then, of course, we've got Verte for the Fusion Destiny. Dark, never saw it, never needed it, never played it today. Lambda, made it once, is what it is. Obviously, Unicorn, access code. All pretty straightforward on these. You've just got your power play route, so Dark can go into Unicorn, can go into access code. You could even go Justify plus another monster to get you an access code as well. Then, of course, yay, DPU, double Natis. And then we've got an XYZ package of Pallades into an M7, into a Thunder Charger, into a Zeus. Now, I only ever made Pallades today. This is only being able to be made by 2 Gravitinos. This can be made with a Platina plus the Laplace as well. So you've got 3 copies of both. So you've got 3 routes of making this one, 3 routes of making this one. And then the idea is no matter which one you make, so if you make Pallades, you can then use M7, and then I believe you can go M7 on top into Thunder Charger, and then you go into Zeus. Now, by doing that, you'll have 2 materials off of your Pallades and 2 materials here. So the Thunder Charger might not need to be made, but the reason it's in here is if you've used Pallades to bounce a card, you can then still make Thunder Charger, and Zeus then still has 2 sends, which is really important, and it gives you a couple of options. The extra deck, like I said, it really doesn't matter. Like, you can see that I've gone with a lot of singles, which is why Prosperity is better for this version than Extrav. But I can also understand that there is a massive gulf in price. Not to mention when we get the reprint of Extrav in the structure decks, it's going to go from a difference of £80 per pot to like a £5 pot. So Extravagance is definitely better for the control build, in my opinion, because you kind of want that draw too. You don't really mind what you're drawing as long as you're drawing into your pieces or as long as you're drawing into the bits you need. So, anyway, I hope you like this. I hope it's giving you an idea on your own particular builds. Like I said, if you're looking to kind of cut costs down, then the Fusion Destiny engine can be cut down. It can be put into more control cards like strikes. And then if you want to swap out the pots, you're going for Extravs. And straight away, that makes it a lot more budget. You can then turn your access code into Appaloozas. It can also be Avramax. It could be more XYZs. It's entirely up to you on where you'd want to take it. Because like I said, the extra deck is not that heavily reliant. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, guys, as absolutely always, stay safe and, of course, happy dueling.